So to start with, I'm taking the P. Louise base as always, this time in the shade 4. So I'm applying that to the lid first with a flat shader brush, then I'm using that to also define the brows. Then I'm taking a fluffier brush just to blend out the edges, make sure there's no kind of harsh lines that will affect the foundation later. And I'm also kind of patting all over the lid just to make sure there's no creases in that base. This is what makes your eye look so much better, is you need to have a flawless base. So in my last tutorial I said that I really enjoy a more kind of blown out look at the moment. I really enjoy it when the eye look and the kind of bronzer on the temples all kind of meet up and join, and it just looks like a seamless blend. I'm really enjoying that look. For a more full glam eye look, I'm enjoying taking the cream contour shade that I use on my face and also packing that on the outer corner of the eye and dragging it out towards the temples. I find that for a more full glam look it does just add a more seamless blend, so don't have to go in too much with bronzer shades and things connecting the eye look and temple, since the cream contour is already there and it acts as a kind of base. I'm really enjoying that look at the moment, so that's what I'm doing just now. So for eyeshadow, I'm taking the P. Louise Read All About It eyeshadow palette, like I did in my last tutorial. So I'm starting with the shade Problematic, which is a deeper brown shade. I think it's a little bit more on the cool kind of neutral side. So I'm packing that on the outer corner of the eye and also packing that into the crease. So I'm not too worried about blending at the moment. I'm just packing on this colour as the first shade, and then I'll worry about blending it out later. So for my second shade, I'm taking Trending, which is a more of a medium tone brown. It's a little bit more on the kind of warmer red tone side. So I'm just taking that on a little bit of a fluffier brush, but still kind of defined, and just using that to blend out the edges of that Problematic shade. So I'm just taking a little bit of a time, blending that out, and then I'm also going to blend out all of that with the shade Newsflash. So I'm taking that on an even fluffier brush, taking that in towards the inner corner and just buffing out the edges, and also taking that on the outer edge and buffing out the Trending shade just to make sure it's all a seamless blend and everything looks flawless. And then I'm going back in again with the shade Trending just to re-intensify where it was applied before, but also taking that on the inner corner just to make sure everything connects. And then I'm going back in with the shade Problematic just to re-intensify that deep shade and making sure that it really pops on the outer corner. So whenever I'm applying a pigment to my lid, I always like to use some form of glitter glue. So this one I'm taking is from Too Faced, and I'm just packing that all over the lid. So this is a fluffier kind of shader brush, so it's not going to leave any harsh lines. I don't want a sort of cut crease effect. I do want it nice and diffused in the crease, so that will really make sure it's nice and blended. And I'm not taking the pigment all across the full entire lid, so I'm just taking it about 3/4 of the way and then using this fluffier brush to blend it out. And then I'm going back in with the shade Trending just to make sure that between the pigment and the darker shade on the outer corner that there is a blend there. So for this look, I'm using the Peaches and Cream pigment in the shade Dynamite. It's a gorgeous bronzy rose gold shade. It's super sparkly. It's one of my most used shades on clients at this time of year. I think it's perfect for any look. So I'm just packing that all over the lid where I've applied the glitter glue. With this pigment you don't have to add a glitter on, but because it's festive and because more is more, I'm taking the Unicorn Food glitter in the shade Angel Cake and applying that on the top of that pigment. So I'm using some Eldora lash glue just to apply over the top of the pigment to make sure that glue really sticks down and stays all day. So for inner corner highlight, I'm taking an oldie but a goodie. I'm taking Nylon from MAC. I used to use this all the time on clients and I haven't used it for ages, but honestly it's the brightest shadow for the inner corner. I am so obsessed with it. I'm using the Inglot gel liner in the shade 77, which is their black shade, on a fine liner brush just to line the lash line before I put some lashes on later. So moving on from the eyes, I'm priming my skin with the Urban Decay All Nighter Ultra Glow Primer. I'm loving this at the moment. It's a beautiful, beautiful primer. Then I've just applied my lashes, and today I'm using the by Robin Anderson lashes in the style Sophie. And then for foundation, I'm taking the NARS Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation in the shade Barcelona. So I'm applying that to my skin with a flat foundation brush and then blending it out with a fluffier foundation brush just to make sure it's all seamlessly blended into the skin and it gives such a flawless base for the rest of my makeup. So with foundation, I used to apply it all over the skin and then blend it out, but I find that sometimes depending on the foundation that you're using, that can make it a little bit harder to blend if it's already started to dry. So I do tend to work in kind of smaller areas, so I start with one cheek, move on to the next one, then the forehead and so on, so that each section gets blended properly, rather than some sections getting blended and then maybe foundation is drying like somewhere else on your face. So I find this gives the most flawless look. So now for cream contour, I'm using the same shade of concealer that I used earlier when we were doing the eyes. So this is the Too Faced Born This Way Sculpting Concealer in the shade Chestnut. So I'm applying this to the cheekbones and also to the temples, so making sure it's blended in to where I applied it earlier, make sure that all connects. So with the cheeks, I'm applying it first and then blending out the edges, so you don't want to over blend your contour because then it just loses that definition and then what's the point. So I make sure I apply it first and then just kind of tickle the edges to make sure it's all blended, and then I'm going back in with my foundation brush just to make sure that the underside is nice and blended in with the foundation. And then on a smaller brush, I'm applying the cream contour to my nose as well. And then next I'm going in with concealer. So I'm taking the Tarte Shape Tape in the shade Light Medium Sand, and I'm applying that to the under eye. So like I mentioned in my last video, I placed that on the underneath the inner corner and also the outer corner towards the temples, just so I'm not adding too much product, but that does bring a lot of highlight to the under eye. So I also apply that to the chin, the centre of the forehead and my cupid's bow, just to bring a lot of highlight to the overall face to make sure it's all balanced out between the highlight and the contour. Then I'm blending it out with a smaller, fluffier brush just to make sure those edges are all blended. So with the under eye, I'm making sure that I'm very careful with the outer corner, just so that I'm not ruining where we put that cream concealer, the contour, earlier, so that we're not ruining that defined shape that we've created. It has to be really, really careful that's not kind of smudged and ruined. So yeah, a smaller brush is always better for that sort of thing. So just to make sure that concealer and the cream contour are all blended together, I'm just going back in with the foundation brush just to make sure all those edges are blended. So at the moment I'm loving a liquid blush, so today I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury Beauty Light Wand in the shade Pinkgasm and just applying that to the cheeks. Then I'm setting the under eye with the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder in the shade 1. And to finish up the eyes, I'm going back in with the shade Newsflash on a smaller, fluffier brush, just dragging that under the lower lash line. And then I'm applying the Peaches and Cream eyeliner in the shade Cleopatra to my waterline and also kind of underneath the lower lashes and smudging that out just to add a really defined, kind of dramatic look. So I've just had fresh brow lamination done, so I've decided not to fill in my brows. That's something I do like to do once my brows have been freshly laminated. So I'm just taking a wipe just to clean off any products like foundation and things that got into my brows, just to make sure they're nice and clean and fresh. I'm also taking it on a smaller, fluffier brush just to set that cream contour on the nose, then also adding a little bit under the lower lip. I find that adds a little bit of a poutier look. I've just loved doing that when I'm doing a full glam. For blush, I'm taking the Jordana Tisha blusher in the shade Prom Queen, and then for highlight, as always, I'm taking the Doll Beauty highlighter in the shade Shine Bright. I'm applying that to the top of my cheekbones, the cupid's bow on the bridge of my nose and also on my forehead, just to add a gorgeous bit of highlight. I think you cannot do too much highlight when you're going for full glam. So now on to lips. I'm taking the Peaches and Cream lip liner in the shade Punchline. This is more of a darker nude, which isn't a shade that I normally use as lip liner, but for a more glam look I think it works perfectly with a lighter nude, so I'm using that to line my lips. For lipstick, I'm taking the Charlotte Tilbury lipstick in the shade Penelope Pink and just applying that all over my lips. And then I'm topping that with a gloss. Today I'm using the Fenty Gloss Bomb in the shade Sweet Mouth. And then lastly, I'm taking the Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray and using that to set everything in place, make sure it's lasting all night long. And yeah, so that is the finished look. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to be notified of any future uploads. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!